Hello, welcome to the Sutliffian Report. Today we have some fun stuff lined up, some surprising information, and if we have time at the end, we're going to go over a recent video that Memory has found and translated for us. You're going to find that video incredibly shocking. Today, as this is a Christian show, we're going to start with a reading from God's Word. And today that would be Luke 17, verses 11 to 19. And it came to pass, as he went to Jerusalem, that he passed through the midst of Samaria and Galilee. And as he entered into a certain village, there met him 10 men that were lepers, which stood afar off. And they lifted up their voices and said, Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. And when he saw them, he said unto them, Go show yourselves unto the priests. And it came to pass that as they went, they were cleansed. And one of them, when he saw that he was healed, turned back with a loud voice and glorified God, and fell down on his face at his feet, giving him thanks. And he was a Samaritan. And Jesus answering said, Were there not 10 cleansed? But where are the 9? They are not found that returned to give glory to God, save this stranger. And he said unto him, Arise, go your way, your faith has made you whole. Now, leprosy during this time was seen as a punishment for sin. Matthew Henry writes that Christ was now on his way to Jerusalem, about the midway, where he had little acquaintance in comparison with what he had either at Jerusalem or in Galilee. He was now in the frontier country, the marches that lay between Samaria and Galilee. He went that road to find out these lepers and to cure them, for he is found of them that sought him not. These 10 men, having found a man known for healing all manner of diseases, including leprosy, they were together in their misery, as they were not allowed to intermingle with their own families. This chance sighting of Jesus, this was an opportunity they could not waste. They kept their distance and cried out, Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. There was no question what they suffered from. The distance kept. The clothing and looks said it all. They were lepers. They stood not as beggars, but as men fully knowing that if Jesus had mercy on them, they would be healed. They called him Master. They willingly gave submission to Jesus before he even answered. Jesus does not promise a healing, and instead tells them to go show themselves to the priest, something they should do if they are healed. That had to inflame excitement within them. They may have started walking or running to do what Jesus asked. Even so, as they began their step in obedience, not one of them was healed. But as they continued, they were all healed. Only one returns to give thanks. Misery may love company. Joy may need to be shared, but thanksgiving is to be done in person whenever possible. How quickly some forget that reason to be thankful and only think of their current state. Whatever current emotion they have, they want to hold it. But the reason for joy, the reason to be joyous being that Jesus willed that they could be cleansed from leprosy, should be rejoiced above the feeling of being whole again. Think about this as you rejoice in what Jesus did for us on the cross. Let's pray. Dear Lord Jesus, it's your love for undeserving, willful sinning selves, Lord. It's your love that saved us. Lord, thank you for taking the time to think about us, Lord, that you would die for us, that you would be the one to take all that, Lord, that you would come and do this for us. Lord, we just ask that all that we're doing today, Lord, that would give Muslims and others, Lord, the chance to find out who we really are. In your name, Lord Jesus, amen. We're going to tackle stuff that no one wants to touch today. Now, we're talking about trade and we're talking about Shariah, but you would think that, we're talking about trade, Islamic supremacy, and we have kept finding that there's problems. These problems have to do with the hidden element of a love of slavery. Now, you're going to find that out in many readings today. They don't translate it into the English. All right. So one of the things when we read today, we're going to try and read just the English translation, and then you're going to see it highlighted what's missing in the right side, which is the Google Translate or Usama translation, as you're going to see. I find it very, very interesting. Why, what's the purpose of hiding? In fact, there's one passage, there was no translation. And when I used the Google Translate, it didn't make any sense. So that's where I called in Usama and I said, help, this doesn't make any sense. And yeah, he went back and he actually had to go look up the word because he hadn't heard it. So it was an interesting statement to, if a word isn't known by someone whose native language is Arabic, again, we're talking classical Arabic, so this is a little bit different, but it's a rarely used word, so that's got to be something. All right, let's get into this. And let's get the mouse in the right spot. Here we go. Darcy, would you like to read first on the left there?
Yeah. Undercutting another's deal. It is unlawful to undercut a brother's deal or non-Muslims, since there is no difference between Muslims and non-Muslims in rulings concerning commercial dealings that he has had made with a customer after they have settled on the price. Meaning to say to someone who has accepted something with the intention to buy it for so and so much, return it to its owner and now sell you a better one for the same price or less. Or tell the seller, take it back from him and I'll pay you more for it. The above restriction after they have settled on the price excludes someone going around taking bids from those who are increasing them, as auctioneers do, which is not unlawful. It is also unlawful to undercut a brother's price during the option to cancel at the time of the agreement or during a stipulated option to cancel period by telling the buyer, cancel the deal and I'll sell you one cheaper. This also holds for other contracts such as renting or lending the use of something.
So I thought it was interesting on this section. I highlighted what was in red here. It says, and to pay the price of his brother, even if he is not a Muslim or there is no difference. I find it interesting. They added a few things on the left about this non-Muslim person. All they said on the right in the Google Translate version is there's no difference between a Muslim and an infidel in transactions. It's in the left, they said in rulings concerning commercial dealings. So they didn't include the rulings part. I find interesting why they would add that in, because the rulings would never be in favor of a non-Muslim. So this is a problem. And, it's just something to point out. They're telling you an extra piece that is not true. So you wouldn't go to a Sharia court. You have no rights in a Sharia court if you're not Muslim. So that's just kind of bizarre. All right, we're going to go on. And let's see. I'll read this one and I'll give Sharon a longer piece. Here we go. Bidding up merchandise. It is unlawful to bid for the price of a piece of merchandise that one is not really interested in to fool another bidder. Anybody watched Storage Wars, where they're bidding over storage units? And you'll see them do this. They'll bid up a price to trick somebody. Anybody else seen that? I just thought it was interesting. You know, try and get someone to pay more.
I've never watched it.
Yeah, it was interesting because you get 2 or 3 guys that get together and they made a deal. We'll get this idiot to overpay for this unit, and they bid up, and this guy said, "Oh, there must be something we missed," and he all of a sudden he overbid them, and you know he's in on the bidding, and they all drop out, and he's left hanging with it. Yeah. They did this to sucker people in. It's sad. I mean, there's some things that make sense, but yeah, again, the purpose here was deceit. And this is interesting. The English the translation from Google, and to become impure. Notice it doesn't say it's unlawful. Impure should make it. Okay, I thought this was interesting. Just the choice of wording. By increasing the commodity while he's not interested in it, to order to deceive others. So here's another way to look at this. If you ever go to an auction, and you might have somebody who doesn't want what you're bidding on. They just want you to pay a higher price. You might feel like you have to have it, so they just bid a little bit higher and you bid. They bid a little bit higher and you bid higher. Their only reason, they don't want it. That's where I've seen this stuff happen. It's nastiness. I think this says a lot more. The English, that Google Translate is a lot better than this piece, because this is a little more deceptive. One is lawful, and one says impure. So you're becoming. I think when you're saying impure, this is saying you should be able to go to prayer. That's something. How do you wash that off yourself?
You go kiss a rock.
That's what you got. You got to go. You got to go do some kind of penance. Yeah, kiss a rock. Go to Mecca. Go to Medina. Read the Quran. Oh, I don't know if that's going to get you time off. Yeah. All right. Next one. Sharon, can you read this one, please?
Thank you. Okay. Selling grapes to a winemaker. It is unlawful to sell grapes to someone who will make wine from them. Unlawful? Okay. Yeah. Like grapes, this is the sale of dates, bread, wheat, or barley whenever one knows that this alcoholic drink will result or thinks it will. If there is doubt, or if one merely imagines it, then the transaction is merely offensive. Think Zan means to believe it probable, doubt means one is undecided, and imagine means to merely consider it possible. Selling in such cases is unlawful or offensive because it means to disobedience, whether certain or suspected. Meaning an instrumental cause as opposed to something which is not instrumental, such as renting a house to a drunkard, which is not unlawful because it is not a cause, though it is unlawful to rent a building to someone who intends to open a bar, for example. Tirmidhi relates that the Prophet cursed whoever drinks wine, gives it to others to drink, sells it, buys it, presses it for another, transports it, receives it, or caps its price. I'm not sure what that
So just to make a point on the bar issue, the English Parliament was taken over by Muslim ownership.
No.
So I'm talking about the building where the bars are. Maybe not the Parliament, but the bar where all the parliamentarians hang out. Okay, the area that was taken over. Guess what? They don't sell anymore.
Booze.
Alcohol.
Yeah.
No booze. So the Muslims bought a lot of the area up, and yeah, think about that. That's what's happening now. Did you read anything that had to do with slavery, Sharon?
No, it was mostly food.
All right. So here's what's missing. So in the second paragraph on the right, it says rather it is forbidden or disliked because of the cause of disobedience, whether actual or suspected. Now, Al-Tirmidhi narrated that he cursed her mustache and legs. I was trying to figure out how this is not implication of slavery. Cursed her. Now, I don't see a part where they even mention this because it doesn't seem to make sense, maybe. But you have to think about it. Tirmidhi relates that the Prophet, cursed whoever drinks wine. Okay. Cursed her mustache and legs. Okay. So it's a woman who owns the bar. Is that what they're saying? I just think there's too much missing here. So it's just problematic. But it almost, sounds like, I mean, the fact that they would be doing these things, it's more like a barmaid is all I can think of. All right, let's keep going. Darcy, 4.10, please.
Righty then. If one makes any of the above unlawful transactions, the agreement is valid.
Wait. Does that make sense? If you make an unlawful transaction, the agreement is still good?
No.
So you can do it anyways. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's wrong. You can still get away with it. In the English, this is, and if you look in the Arabic on the right, it says, he is wrong in all these pictures. It's forbidden to sell. Combining a valid sale and sale in one contract is invalid. That's the exact opposite of what it says in English. I find that interesting. If you make any of the above unlawful transactions, the agreement's valid. I mean, why is that such an opposite translation? I mean, you got to sit here and wonder. The English looks exact opposite. Maybe they're just telling you can deceive everybody you want. Remember, deceit is so important in Islam. It's in everything. All right. I'm going to give Sharon one more kick at this. The valid sale combined with an invalid sale.
Okay. If one combines something valid to sell with something invalid to sell in one transaction, such as selling one's own garment together with someone else's garment, with someone else's without his permission, or such as selling wine and vinegar, then the transaction is valid for the portion of the price that covers the valid sale, no matter whether the person knew what the case was or whether he did not, and believed the sale permissible, thinking at the time that the wine was vinegar, and is invalid for the portion of the price that was not valid. And the portion must be refunded to the buyer. The buyer has the option to cancel the whole agreement if, at the time the deal was made, he did not know it included something impermissible.
So if there's something he shouldn't be doing, I mean, this is where you start one. If the buyer has the option to cancel, okay, if the whole agreement, if at the time the deal was made, he didn't. I mean, so if you're getting scammed and you figure it out, I mean, you can try and get your money back. Yeah. So that's the problem here. But in 4.11, did you see anything that had to do with slavery in the English side?
No, they just left it out. They omitted it.
So look on the right. It says if he combines in one contract what is permissible and what is not permissible, and the permissibility here is taken to be valid, such as his slave and a slave. So again, this is a reference to the sale of slaves. We got to remember Muhammad was a slave trader. So they have to keep talking about slaves. Why do they got to keep hiding it? Because, I mean, that's the thing. I just think they're trying to hide it from the African American population or the European. I mean, all the Africans that have gone to Europe, they're trying to hide that because I think they don't want Muslims, Africans to know that they were being, everything in Sharia has to do with slavery or sex. It just kind of mind numbing. Notice that this garment follows the garment and the garment of another person without his permission. So you almost wonder if the garment had to do with the slave or if the garment has to do, I mean, there's more here. I mean, if you got a bad contract, even in the sale of slaves, they made sure they brought it in. The buyer has the choice to cancel. So this is going to get more interesting in a few minutes. Giving the buyer the choice to cancel if he figures something's not valid. Here's my problem with this. They shook hands. They made the deal. Now the exchange, it doesn't look like the exchange has happened. Are you noticing that? Knowledge of the situation or ignorance, he permitted the sale. Wine was estimated at the time and validated that was not permissible. Buyer has the choice if he is ignorant. Wait a minute, who's selling? Sounds like we were talking about the Muslim selling a little while ago, right? The Muslim cannot sell the wine. So the person who has the buyer has the choice. So this is getting really, it's going both ways. So you just got to sit here and try and figure out what are they trying to say. It's kind of weird. Anybody else's thoughts on this one? All right, we're gonna head on. This is going to get interesting. All right, let's go on to the next one here. All right, Eric, would you like to read? I don't know if he can hear us. Would you like to read, Eric? Okay, we're on K4.12. Can you hear us or? Can't hear you, Eric. I don't know if you're hearing us. Okay, I guess I'll read. K4.12. It is valid to join two contracts of different kinds. For example, a sale with a rent agreement, such as saying, I sell you my horse and rent you my house for a year for such and such an amount. Though it is not necessary that they be two different kinds. For the ruling also applies to two contracts of the same type, such as partnership, linked with financing, a profit-sharing venue, or such as saying, I marry you my daughter and sell you her house as her proxy, the proceeds being hers for so and so much. The price is considered as proportionately distributed over the two transactions. Now, this is going to be bad. In English, from Google Translate, if he combines two contracts with different rulings, such as sale and a lease. Now, you can lease to own things. And I find that interesting. That they're even talking about that. I think that's pretty far advanced. I didn't realize they were thinking about this kind of concept that far back. You can lease to own a car. You can you can rent to own a house. I thought that was pretty revolutionary back in I think I first heard something like that in the late 80s, early 90s. I thought it was revolutionary back then. But take a look at how this goes. Such as my slave will live with you. Two contracts. Would you like to add that? My slave will live with you. What does that mean? He's giving her away as a whore. I mean, that's so he's letting his sex slave as part of the contract work, spend time with this person as part of a contract. And your rent for my house will be such and such a year. So it's, start thinking about that. And the difference is not a restriction, but something similar to it that is united, such as the partnership and the loan. You will marry my daughter and I will sell you her slave. Didn't you know? Start thinking about that. Well, that came first, and then they put in notes, the house for such and such. Oh, wait a minute. On the left, they said, I will marry you my daughter and sell you her house. No, the house is in notes. Why did they take the slave out and trade it for a house? Ooh, are they scared to let people know they're more concerned about slaves than a house? Anybody else surprised? Like, there's so much of their love of slavery in here.
No, I'm not surprised. You know what? I'm thinking people. At first I wasn't with this idea, but I'm thinking people should learn Arabic. I mean, I'm not a language expert. Obviously, you can probably tell, but if more and more people learn Arabic, they'll see what is being hidden or omitted in the English.
I think we're in a phase of technology right now where you don't necessarily need to read it. You can take your phone, which is what I did. You take your phone, you pick Google Translate, or you can just do it online, and you can translate. I use my phone. I'll select Google Translate, take a picture of something, which is what I did here, and translate. And I'm like, wow. You know, if I have questions about something, like I did today, I'll send it to Osama, who knows Arabic, and he'll check it. So the one thing I want checked, wait till we get to that. I'm not so much into thinking everybody needs to read it, but look, you can go pick up, your phone has a Google Translate app on it. Most likely, take a picture of the Arabic, choose Arabic to English in the translation mode. It'll show you right there. What I do is I select all the translation, I copy it, and I send it to myself in an email, so I can put this easily into the presentations. This is mind-numbing, the fact that they're hiding this. I don't understand what their purpose is in hiding it, except they don't want people to know that this is how important slavery is to them. It's in almost all their transaction laws. I mean, we just had it here, a valid sale combined with an invalid sale. We have it over here, combining two different ruling contracts. I mean, so if you marry the daughter, he's going to sell the husband. He's going to sell the husband a slave, the daughter's slave. So is he getting the two women for the price of one? Because now he has rights over her if he buys her. Yeah, think about that. Those whom your right hand possesses. Why does this have to be in the piece of transaction? Because it's part of life for Islam, I guess. Here we go. Let's go on. The next one. And we are up to K5.0. And Eric, did you want to read, or you might not be able to? All right. Darcy, go ahead.
I can read, Paul. I'm sorry.
Oh, you can read. Oh,
I was having technical difficulties, and I just... Okay, so
right.
K5, you said?
Yes. Yeah, K5.0.
Okay. It is not valid. Wait, where are we here? Am I on the right one? I'm looking. Oh, I'm at K4, 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 K5. K5.0. Here we go. Okay, the return of merchandise. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, the return of merchandise because of a defect. I'm just thinking of Walmart, when you can, okay. The criterion for defect is based on something that is expected to exist, whether this exception results from stipulations agreed upon, the customary level of quality for merchandise of its type, or number 3, outright deception by the seller. The author does not mention 1 in this section, but confines himself to 2 and 3. Okay.
So what happens if you go to Walmart and you bring home a TV and something's missing or something's not right? What do?
You take it back.
Take it back. Are you going to get your money back?
Yes, usually. If you have your receipt, sure.
Okay. So in English, the Google Translate version says, it depends on something that is suspected to have occurred. The suspicion arose from a police obligation, customary law, or actual deception. The author did not mention the first section, and mentioned the second and the third. So look at this. The customary level of quality. It's not even in here, all right? The outright deception by the seller, that's there. Customary level of quality. I mean, so you got a scam artist, basically. Someone's trying to scam you. I guess it's how you look at it. They're not even saying it. It sounds like this is only if it's if it's known that it's being deceptive. That's not a good piece here. That's what I would be concerned. Defect doesn't. This is the problem. I look at this and I don't see what happens if they don't know there's something wrong with the merchandise. Because I don't see anything that would be voided here. Only the author being outright deception, customer level of qualify. I don't know. I think if maybe the customer level of if it was supposed to be quality, it says qualify, but quality could probably get you there. You could have an expectation of something working. It's been I just bought a car. Like, yeah, if it was bad, I would return it. Yes, definitely want my money back. Anything that costs money, you don't want to be scammed. Yeah. All right, let's head on, and we'll go back to Darcy. K5.1.
Okay. Whoever knows of a defect in the article he is selling, he is obliged to disclose it. I think I'm getting an echo here.
That could be me. Let me just double check and make sure it's not me. So hold on, I gotta stop my screen just a second. There's a possibility it's me. All right. Let's see if this is any better.
Echo, right. Echo. It's good.
Okay.
Okay. Whoever knows of a defect in the article he is selling, he is obliged to disclose it. If he does not, he has cheated the buyer, which is prohibited by the prophet's statement, "He who cheats us is not one of us." Though the transaction is valid, provided the buyer accepts it, as discussed below.
So I find this humorous. Are you anybody else catching this?
Yeah, in fact, I was laughing as I read it.
So I'm just going to read the English translation from Google. It says, whoever knows that there's a defect in commodity is obligated to point it out. If he does not point it out, he's committed fraud. The buyer is forbidden from doing so because he says, and whoever deceives us is not one of us. Okay, does that mean you can sell and scam anyone who's not Muslim? That's what I'm reading here. Anybody else have thoughts?
Yeah, that's exactly. You got it.
scam the non-Muslim and get away with it. It's perfectly legal. It's right here in Sharia. You can scam the non-Muslim. I have a piece of the Brooklyn Bridge for you to buy. Okay, you sell it to them and you run away, and oh, okay, you got your jizya because the non-Muslim was too stupid to figure out you were scamming them. Oh, let's see. Could that be why so many scams are done from Pakistan to other countries? Selling something. Wait, as long as they're not scamming Muslims, right? Is that what this is saying? So I went and looked up this verse. And here's what I found. It's in Sahih Muslim, but I also found it in Sunan Abi Dawud. It says the messenger of Allah passed a man who was selling grain. He asked him, "How are you selling?" He informed him. Revelation then came down to him saying, "Put your hand into it." So he put his hand into it and felt that it was damp. The messenger of Allah then said, "He who deceives has nothing to do with us." Oh, grain shouldn't be damp, right, Eric? What does it mean if it's damp? Your mic is off.
That means that it means that you are adding weight to it by adding moisture to it. So if it's because number one, when you harvest it, it's supposed to be dry. There's a certain percentage of dryness that for corn, grain, or whatever you're harvesting. It has to achieve a certain amount of dryness. But in grain or wheat, in this, is it saying wheat in this example? Or grain? In
Grain.
It's if the wetter it is, the heavier it is. So if you are selling it by weight instead of volume, like you would in a bushel, you're cheating them because it's not supposed to be as wet as it is. As it's not supposed to be wet. It's supposed to be.
But again, this is only if you're deceiving another Muslim. What if you did this to a non-Muslim? Does it sound permissible?
Surah 98:6.
Surah 98:6. I'll pull it up. Let's see. 98. And let's see here. Here we go. Surah 98:6. Surely those who became infidels from the people of the book and polytheists will abide in the fire of hell forever. Those are the worst of creatures.
Do whatever you want to them. It doesn't matter. So if you want to lie to them, if you want to cheat them, if you want to steal from them, if you want to enslave them, if you want to rape them, if you want to kill them, they're the worst of creatures, don't you see? That's not according to Muhammad. That's not according to Arabs. That's not according to the Sunnah. That's according to the God of Islam.
That Muslims worship. Yep, that's their Allah. Yep, it's just mind-numbing. All right, we're gonna go on. We'll come back and do more on slavery in a bit. Okay, Sharon, returning defective merchandise.
When a buyer notices a defect in the merchandise that existed when the seller had it, he is entitled to return it. Though if he is content to accept the defect, he does not have to return it. He may also return it when the defect occurred after the sale, but before the merchandise was delivered, since the merchandise is the seller's responsibility during this period. Do you want me to
hold on. If you are a contractor, you will buy merchandise and have it delivered to your place. You don't get to go through everything. Like, so we'll take a look at wood. This is something I'm just learning because spending time with Usama, looking at him going through wood and seeing, well, this one isn't right. This is right. I never have no knowledge of what contractors do. And it was kind of interesting. You know, this is a good piece of wood. This is bad. Things I would never thought about. Can you imagine if you spent money on something and you could not return it because you'd already made a deal, and you made the deal before it was delivered. Would that be a problem for everybody?
Well, we've seen the deal where for sale as is,
Yeah.
and as it is it as. So that sounds kind of like Forrest Gump there, but if you sell as is and they buy it, they have no recourse to come back and says, well, this is broke on it. And I said, look, I sold it to you as is. If you didn't want to buy it, you didn't have to. And if you thought that something was wrong with it, maybe you shouldn't have bought it.
Yes.
So, but that again is a form of dishonesty. I sold a trailer one time, and I sold it for super cheap because I knew that the hub had it needed a new wheel hub on it. It was rattling, it was loose, and it wasn't going to work. So I sold it for uber cheap. I sold it as is. Well, a lady comes and gets it, takes it home, and calls me back up and says, my husband doesn't want it. And I said, no, wait a second. I sold it super cheap, knowing that this wheel was loose here. I was thinking that you guys would repair it. Well, he doesn't want it. I'm like, bring it back, no problem. And that's what an honest person would do. However, there are people less scrupulous out there that would have said, tough luck. You bought it as is, and that is as it is.
Yeah, that's true. There's a difference between an honest person. Yeah, it's better to make people happier, make them want to come back and buy from you again. All right. Let's see. Darcy, you were reading. No, was it Sharon was reading? Who was reading? I'm sorry.
I was reading.
Okay, you want to do 5.3 then?
Yeah. Okay. The criterion of defectiveness is any flaws that diminish the article or its value to a degree that hinders a valid purpose.
So this is exactly pretty much the same. All right.
Yeah.
We're going to go on.
B, provided that such an imperfection does not usually exist in similar merchandise. The former restriction excludes such things as amputation of a surplus digit or a minor nick from the animal's thigh or hock that is inconsequential and does not obviate its purpose, in which case there is no option to return it. The latter restriction excludes defects not generally absent in similar merchandise, such as missing teeth in older animals.
Wait. Missing teeth in what?
Older animals.
Okay. Keep going.
There is no option to return such merchandise, even if the value is diminished.
Okay, wait. You can't return it if there's missing teeth in an older animal. All right, let's see what it says in English here. Notice this red section. It says the item is sold. The item sold does not exist in the first. Okay, I'm just going to skip the red section. That was not mentioned anyplace. So remember, they were talking about missing digits or a minor nick from the animal's thigh or hock, that it is inconsequential and does not obviate its purpose. So listen, down here it says, so it is rejected that he made the slave a eunuch. Castration is forbidden. And Ibn Qasim, Al-Qasim said, it appears that it is a major sin, or stealing or urinating in the bed when he is an adult. So,
I'll tell you the truth. I've read history, and the slaves that they didn't sell to the slavers that were shipped over to the Americas.
Yes.
The ones that they kept and they sold to their own, they were castrated fully or partially.
They were after they were sold, they were castrated.
Yeah, and a lot of them died.
Yes.
Upwards of 90% of them died.
Yeah.
En route to Arab lands. Yeah, it was absolutely horrible. And it wasn't just a form of castration. In a lot of cases, they would cut everything away. I mean,
well, that's what I meant, either partially or fully. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was absolutely brutal what they did to the males. going eastward to Arab lands. It's disgusting.
Now, I mean, I don't consider that part of a male anatomy a surplus digit. I mean, that's just disgusting to equate that. But again, this is hiding their love of slavery. So they could sell a slave, have the slave made a eunuch, right? But the castration could be part of the sales deal. It's you can't castrate them until after they're sold. All right. And then if the slave as an adult wets the bed, it's a bad like, what are you gonna do? He's an adult now. You bought him as a child. Yeah. Kind of like, what did you do to that person?
Yeah, I think it's kind of neat how they put in there about the teeth, such as missing teeth and old. You ever hear the phrase "Don't look a gift horse in the mouth"?
Yes.
So somebody gives you a horse, don't look at. Well, people used to look at the horses in their mouths, check and see how many teeth they were missing, because that would generally tell you how old and how worn out that animal was. So here in the Sharia, you have the codification of an old English cliche of checking animal
horse in the mouth.
Yeah. Well, checking its teeth to see how old the animal is. That's a good way to determine. The more worn teeth are, or if they're missing, it's a pretty good indication that animal's pretty old.
This one is not the worst one so far. It gets worse. All right. Keep thinking about this. I mean, they have Eric. I want you to think about this. When you do your presentation on slavery and what they do to slaves, it's here in Sharia, K5.3 in English. Like, wow. I'll send you these two slides. Just okay. Wow. If I don't send them to you today, remind me. Okay. Okay. Sharon read, so I guess we're back to Eric.
What are we at? 5.4? Okay. If the buyer notices a defect in the merchandise after it has been destroyed, whether physically, such as an animal being killed, a garment worn out, or food eaten, or whether legally finished by being no longer permissible to transfer from one person to person, as when a site has been made an endowment, then a compensation, good night, from the seller to the buyer is obligatory. The buyer is entitled to it because of the impossibility of returning the article due to it no longer existing. Compensation means a part of the article's price whose relation to the whole price is the same as the relation of the value which the defect diminished to the full value of the article if it had been without defect.
Okay, so wait a minute. Okay, the buyer becomes aware of a defect after the item's damaged. So you have a car, you get hit by another car, and as you're getting the car examined, you find out there's a defect in the car because of
you have a bearing go out in the wheel. Wheel. All right, you need a new hub.
Yeah.
So it looks to me like you're to be compensated minus the cost of the hub. Or you have to pay for the cost of the hub or something on those lines. Compensation is part of the article's price whose relation to the whole price is the same as the relation to the value which the defect diminished to the full value of the article if it had been without a defect.
Wow, that's a lot of words to say something.
Yeah, well, it's offsetting. It's just the difference between, okay, how much is it going to cost to fix this hub in the car versus how much the total price of the car was. So if I sell you a car for $5,000 and it's going to cost $500 to fix the hub, then the compensation that I would have to give you would be the $500. But this is talking about a return, though. Am I correct?
Yeah. Well, then there was compensation. You can't return this thing because I think it's right now we're only talking about compensation, and then it says the value is how much money. Yeah, I think you could pretty much end with what you just said, because this is, be honest, this is so wordy. I mean, in English, it's the English translation, right? The Google Translate was so wordy it was hard for me to read. He owned it by selling it. Otherwise, he had no opinion. The buyer requests the compensation now. Refund due to defect, dismissal, or purchase is his right. First buyer. I would not want to follow these rules, because you know what? This is so wordy, it's hard to understand. This is just a mess. All right, let's go on, and we're coming back to Darcy. Oh, Eric, I'm going to have you read one more piece here. Okay.
The buyer is no longer entitled to seek compensation for such a defect if he notices the defect after, or he no longer owns the article because of having sold it or otherwise disposed of it. But if such an article returns to the buyer's possession after this, i.e. after having left his ownership, whether as a gift or returned from a subsequent buyer, because it was defective or because of a canceled deal, he buys it back, then he is entitled to return it to the person who originally sold it to him. Okay, so
I have a problem with that one, but I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Entitled to seek compensation for such a defect, he no longer owns the article because of having sold it or otherwise disposed of it. Okay, so if I buy a car from you and I resell it, that makes sense. I no longer can seek compensation for a defect that was in the article of the car that I had already sold. However, but if such an article returns to the buyer's possession after this, because it was defective or because of a canceled deal, then he is entitled to return it. Yeah,
that's a little too. Sorry, I'm not into that. I don't think it's called buyer's remorse. Sorry, too bad. You have to be careful, buyers. Don't. They say to research before you buy something. Don't just go buy something on a whim. There's reasons not to. I have done that, and with computers, I now have to trust certain individuals to tell me what I need to buy to meet my needs. And the last time I took this kid, my pastor's grandson actually gave me the advice on what I needed in my computer. And I'll tell you, the difference between the last computer and the one he recommended to me is night and day. I can do everything I want on this one computer. So it's a huge difference. So pay attention, do your research. Don't get stuck with this one. Sharon, you had something to say, or?
Oh no,
okay. All right. Okay, we're gonna go on. Back to Darcy. Okay, 5.5. Sorry, it's a little scrunched. If you want to read the stuff on the right, it's easier to read.
Give me a second here. Okay, if an additional defect appears in an article other than the above-mentioned defect that exists before the buyer received the article, while it is in the buyer's possession, then the buyer is only entitled to take a compensation from the seller to compensate for the original defect and is not entitled to it.
Entitled to return.
To return or insist that the seller accept the article for a full refund. But if the original seller is willing to accept it back with the new defect, refunding the original price, then the buyer is not entitled to keep their article and demand compensation for the original defect. Rather, the buyer is told either return it or else be content with it as it is, and you get nothing for the harm to the original seller for what prevents it, it being obligatory for him to accept its return no longer exists if the seller is content to take it back, and the merchandise is as if the additional defect never occurred.
So I have a story that kind of goes with this. So we're talking about a defect that occurs after purchase, is what it sounds like. So at Foot Locker, when I used to work there, they, as a manager, they would take back shoes for any reason and would replace them with the equivalent. So we had this guy who worked on, he did paving of driveways. He would wear very expensive Nike shoes. Okay. Nike sneakers, I should say. And I'm talking about $100 sneakers. And he came in, bought them, got tar all over them, and returned them. And we're like, no, we're not taking them. You got the tar all over them. You're stupid. You're trying to get something. No, you did the damage to them. We're not going to replace them. And so he went to another store and tried to do the same thing. Too bad for him. We talked with each other and it didn't work out. But can you imagine expecting something for free? I mean, you do the damage and then try and return it. I mean, what kind of business can you have if that kind of thing happens? So strangely enough, we have another piece of Shariah that we kind of agree with. I'm surprised they're okay with the seller accepting this. I guess some people do accept that to try and keep their, I just see it as I don't see any problem with them saying to the buyer, either return it or else be content with it and you get nothing. Demanding compensation. If they want to pay the original owner back for all the the damage to the, I don't know. So you subtract all the damage. You buy a brand new car, you take it off the lot, you get in an accident as you're driving off the lot and you try to sell it back. Yeah, that price has gone down $10,000 the minute you took it out of the parking lot. So now you're down $10,000 and the damage done to the car. So yeah, you lost out big. All right, we'll go on. And Sharon, could you read this one, please?
Their agreement is implemented if buyer and seller agree upon 1, the seller taking it back with the seller refunding the original price and the buyer giving him compensation for the new additional defect. 2, or the buyer keeping the merchandise and the seller paying him compensation for the original defect. Since either of these two options might satisfy the interests of the two parties. If the buyer and seller disagree about which of these two options should be implemented, the decision goes to whichever of them requests option 2, whether this person is the buyer or the seller, since it confirms the original contract.
So the buyer keeping the merchandise and the seller paying him compensation for the original defect. There was no original defect with what we were working with, so this is just kind of weird. And that's what I found. So if you notice the part we were looking at, there was no translation. When I run into stuff like this, it goes long, and there's all this here with with nothing there. Now I go back and I try and see what did they try to hide from us. And you see how there's no Arabic here?
Yeah, I do see that.
So I went back. This is all on the same page. I couldn't get it to go down, but yeah, that stuff on that second paragraph I should probably move over there. But it's, I just think this is kind of, it's already been said. It's being rehashed. It's like the person who wrote this doesn't realize they already said the same thing. I find this up here of interest. It says if the buyer has another defect other than the previous defect, such as a firstborn, the bride is appointed, recovers from the seller, wait, and refrains from compulsory return. So this almost puts women, when they are being married off, as a part of a deal. I mean, it's a financial transaction. So that's something to think about. Even women are considered a financial transaction. So pay attention. I mean, this is just some of the bizarre stuff that you find in Sharia. I mean, so your wife is defective. Oh, the bride is there might be some kind of cultural piece here. I just see this as problematic. All right, let's go on. Let's see. Whose turn is it? I think Sharon just read, right? I think we're back to Eric.
Yeah.
K 5.6.
5.6, if the new defect, which occurs while the article is in the buyer's possession, is the sole means of disclosing the old defect, such as breaking open a spoiled watermelon or eggs, and so forth, then the new defect does not prevent the obligation of the seller to accept its return, but if the new damage exceeds the extent that was necessary to reveal the original defect, then the seller is no longer compelled to accept it back.
So, I don't know if I like this one. I'm going to read the English from Google Translate. If the existing defect is such that the old defect cannot be recognized without it, such as a broken watermelon, eggs, and the like, then the existing defect does not prevent return. Then if it exceeds what can be known, then it is not rejected. So if you got a watermelon, it's spoiled inside, the old defect cannot be recognized without it. If you open the watermelon, I mean, the value of it's gone pretty much, but it's spoiled. I'm trying to, it's like it has to be returned is what I would take it as. Is anybody else seeing that the same way, or?
Yeah, it does not prevent return. So that means you can return it.
Yeah. Okay, so I just wanted to double check.
It's
It's just kind of wordy.
If you open a watermelon and it's rotten inside, you say, hey, yo, you sold me a rotten watermelon.
Yeah, that's pretty much. And
Or-
most people will just swallow the bullet, and I don't know, I'd be pretty ticked. Yeah. All right, let's go on. That one's just weird. Okay, 5.7. We're getting into contracts. Okay. Darcy, can you read 5.7 for us, please? Oh, by the way, everybody, notice all the English on the left and the little bitty piece of Arabic on the right.
Yeah. It is a necessary condition for cases where the buyer seeks a refund for something he is returning because of a defect, that the buyer return it immediately upon noticing the defect. And his option to return it is canceled if he delays without an excuse. On his way back to that seller, he should have 2 witnesses affirm that he is canceling the agreement. So if the seller is unavailable at the time, the buyer is nevertheless able to prove that he went to return it immediately. If the defect is noticed while one is praying, eating, using the lavatory, or at night, If the knight presents a problem in returning it, then one is entitled to delay returning it until. Yeah, sorry, my eyes are starting to bugging.
The hindrance preventing one from doing so is no longer present. Provided one stops using it and benefiting from it. If the buyer delays returning it when capable of doing so, then the seller is no longer obliged to accept the article back for a refund. No longer obliged to compensate the buyer for the original defect. Because the delay gives the impression that the buyer is satisfied with the defect. I like the idea of having the witnesses where you're trying to return it. I can guess that would be important. If you go to a business, the business is closed, and they say you have to return this within 24 hours. And some point you go there, you're within 24 hours, and the business is closed. What are you stuck doing? You would lose the deal unless you had witnesses that you had attempted it. I don't know. Anybody else's thoughts? All right, we can go on from this one. All right, here's the bad one. This is the bad one. All right, I'm going to pick on you, Eric. You want to read this one?
Yeah, I don't see it in my book.
Oh, you can read on the screen.
It's not translated in the book.
Oh.
Now you're here to find out why.
Yes, 5.8, but it's not translated. Okay, why do I have to read this? Okay. Is okay, which is when the seller tightens the behavior of the animal and abandons milking it for days in order to tempt someone else to produce more milk. If the buyer sees it, he has the absolute right to respond. If after milking it and spoiling the milk, return a sa of dates instead of soft ones if the animal is edible, and the Shariah is what? So
this is read the part in red, and then I'll tell you what it actually means. This is pretty bad.
And Shariah is added to the return by making the slave girl's face redden, her hair black, and the like.
So this is where I went to Sam, and I was like, this is what Google Translate says. There's got to be problems here. So here's what he said. Altasia means cheating. How you cheat. You make something bad look good for the purpose of making more money. In cows, they tie the nipples for a day and a half and then take the tie off, and the price of the cow goes up. It looks like it gives more milk.
Right.
So it's not this is considered cheating. You're not supposed to be doing this. That's what they're saying.
Right.
Now, it got more slavery in here. If you're selling a slave, Altasia also can be done. You make her face red to make her look healthy. Or you make her look younger by making her hair black instead of gray. I was like, whoa. It says it's forbidden. And they're talking about, purposeful deception in a contract. You're like, oh my gosh. Yeah. And slavery has to be brought into it for, reddening someone's cheeks who isn't healthy. In those days, they probably would have been taking blood out of a finger and brushed it on the face to make her cheeks look healthier. It's just, this blew my mind. Dyeing someone's hair to make, you don't think about these things. If you're the salesperson and you're trying to sell something off you don't want, you go to you look at house sales, how they do the house sales. You'll see this on all these shows. What do they have to do to make things look better? They'll make the house look nicer. Right now they do setups so it looks like somebody's still living in the house that you're buying. They'll have furniture in there and stuff, so it gives the appearance of being something livable. Still, they're dressing something up. Is it Altasia? No. That's purpose of dressing up to make it sell better. But in this case, this is deception. So here's an example where I would see it with a house, and I almost fell for it. So there was a house that when I was married, we were looking at, and the house had these two boards on the front of the house. It kind of looked like a piece of art, the way it was put on the house. And, it looked really nice. And my friend, who is an architect, my parents, was a friend from my parents, and he looks at this and he's like, that might be art, but it doesn't belong there. And after looking at it for a while, he says, I think I know what that's from. So it was put there to hide a huge leak that had happened from the roof, that had leaked from the roof down and damaged all from the roof all the way down to the basement. So that would be Altasia in that respect. It's like, wow. It was dressed up, or what do they call it? Lipstick on a pig? Yeah. That one made me think. All right, we'll keep going. Since I picked on Eric, Sharon, we'll go to you.
5.9. The term murabaha applies to sales where the seller states the price in terms of the original price plus such and such an amount as profit. Whether by original price he means the amount he originally paid for the whole lot, or whether he means the proportion of that price represented by the percentage of the lot which he is now selling. The seller in murabaha, meaning an agreement where the price consists of the original price plus increment, is obliged to inform the buyer of any defect that occurred in the merchandise while in his possession, such as by saying, I bought it for 10 or bought it for 100 and sell it to you what I bought it for plus 1 dirham's profit on every 10. But such and such a defect happened to it while I had it. He is likewise obliged to say, for example, such a defect appeared in it that was from the previous owner, and I accepted this. The seller in Murabaha is also obliged to explain how much time he was given to pay the original price. Since deferring payment generally raises the price, and merely stating such a raised price without mentioning that it was deferred would give the new buyer a false impression. The author should have mentioned that telling the prospective buyer the above information is also obligatory in sales of discount. On a lot of goods or a proportion thereof, as when the seller tells someone, I sell it to you for what I brought it for, minus 1 from every 11. These rulings likewise apply to agreements stated in terms of, I sell you it at the same price the original deal was made for. That sure gets wordy.
It's wordy. So what are we talking about? We're talking about a price that was raised because they made a deal for an extension and payments. And that's just it's I know I find funny here. This is a statement about interest. Thought you weren't supposed to make deals with interest. No, it's a fee. It's not interest. Oh, wow.
They're just redefining the word interest.
Yes, and that's what Shariah finance does. They add fees instead of interest. And I find that humorous. And now here's an example of it. The cost of they even use the word percentage. The cost or a percentage of the seller is obliged to be informed in the sale. Okay, so you bought it you made a deal. You have to say you're selling. I guess if you're saying, well, I bought it for this and I got it for this, the reason it costs so much is because I paid. They might think they're getting a deal when they're actually not. So it's kind of deceptive. You paid more because you didn't have the money, is what they're saying. So you made payments, so the price was more. And that's just, it's deceptive to get the same amount. So don't be a non-Muslim and deal with Muslims because they would think this is all permissible. But again, it's just don't trust, unfortunately. Muslims aren't allowed to do this to their own. Okay. And we did that. All right. Eric, we're back to you. Selling fruit and crops.
All right. Let's see here. It is not permissible to sell the fruit alone from a tree without the tree while still on it before it is ripe, unless the agreement stipulates immediate picking of the fruit. But such a sale is valid without restriction if made after the fruit is ripe, meaning for fruits that do not change color to become fit to eat, and for fruits whose color changes to start to turn the color of ripeness. If both the tree and the fruit are sold together, the sale is permissible without stipulating that the fruit be picked.
So what do you think do you see any problems with this as someone who understands a little bit of farming?
Well, I'm trying to think of what fruit tree they're going to be.
Yeah, could you find something in Mecca?
Yeah, of course, this is not going to be applicable in Mecca because they don't have any water. But I'm trying to think, okay, so if you have a fruit tree, what fruit tree do they have in it? They have apple trees, or, do they have enough annual rainfall? What region are they talking about?
Well, let's pretend it's dates, because that's the fruit that they do mention.
Pretend it's what?
Dates.
Dates. Well, they do have date. Okay. See, I don't know too much about dates other than they grow in clusters on these big palm trees. So I don't know how with this, do they change color? And if they do change color, what color do they have to be? If you're going to say, okay, what are they saying here? To sell the fruit alone from a tree, if you're just selling the fruit alone before it is ripe, unless the agreement stipulates the immediate picking of the fruit. That doesn't make a lot of sense. You're going to pick the fruit off of the tree and then sell it. That's the way it normally works in a civilized world. Or do you come into the orchard itself or the grove, whatever you want to call it, and say, okay, I want the fruit off of this tree when it ripens.
And then the tree itself.
Yeah. So
weird. I find it a bizarre transaction. It would not.
Nobody's going to buy fruit that's not fit to eat. If you are in a market, you're not going to buy a green banana and take it home and expect to eat it. Why? Because bananas have to turn colors. Same thing with apples, unless they are green apples. They got to wait for them to turn red. You have to wait for, I don't know, oranges. Or lemons. I don't know what color.
I think it's funny with apples. So you pick the apples in a certain season, and it's like you'll buy oranges. You probably pick them just a hair before they're supposed to be picked, and they get sent all the way up here to New York State. And by that time, with all that travel and time, then they're perfectly ripe. But yeah, this would deny the ability to do sales across a wide range of area as well, because you have to wait to the certain time, because a lot of fruits get picked early and
ripen off the vine. I got a pear tree in the backyard where I'll pick pears and I'll let them sit for 2 weeks before I eat them.
Yeah,
because Just
Pears will drop. They'll just drop as soon as they're ripe. They'll drop. Then you got all the bees around. All right. Can you also read case 6.2?
Yep. Grain, when green, is subject to the same ruling as fruit before it is ripe. It may not be sold, nor would the sale be valid unless the agreement stipulates immediate harvest. Though there are no restrictions on sales made after the grain is solid and firm.
I don't know. Again,
Well,
it's if
grain
you
when
agreed
it
of something.
when grain dries, it becomes hard. When it's still green, it's soft. So if you're wheat anyway, or oats is the same way. When it's still growing and it's still green, it's pliable. But when after it dries out, it becomes hard like a seed.
So the question is, are you going to get your money's worth if you do make the deal one way or the other? I think the deal is if you agree to it, it sounds like it's okay. Either way.
Yeah, if you're agreeing to it, you're agreeing to it. If you agree to get ripped off, go ahead.
Yes, that's. I think that's exactly what it's saying. If you were foolish enough to make the deal, you're stuck. Yeah. Okay, let's go on. We're getting towards the end of this. Okay, this is weird. I found this and I can't figure out where it goes. This was part of the translation. I still can't figure it out. Okay, so forgive me. Case 6.3. It's not permissible to sell grain when still in the husk or to sell unripe nuts, almonds, or broad beans when these are in the shell. When the latter three are dried, they may be sold in the shell. There again, down here it says it's not permissible to sell grains for its sake, nor walnuts, almonds, or green beans. Characteristic of each of these three, walnut, green, and beyond, is kashrut. So I think they're talking about nuts that have like a huge shell. That if you weigh the shell, you're paying a higher price. Generally, that it should be weighted differently. Apparently, they weren't thinking that far ahead that we could do this. People will buy bags of peanuts unshelled. They're not necessarily nuts. They're more of a, I don't know, almonds. I think this is, making sure you don't get scammed. Grain in the husk. Again, I think that's what the purpose of that is to keep you from getting scammed. Not saying it's.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Yeah. So where does that love is absolutely permissible?
I can't figure out where it goes. It was part of a translation, and I can't figure that out because it doesn't fit in any place. When I went back, I just copied and pasted, and it doesn't fit in. It would have come in 6.2 most likely. I can't figure out where it fits. So I'm going to have to get rid of it, but I was trying to leave it in because I couldn't figure out where it goes. It should be someplace in between. It was above it. So there are some weird things that I've taken out, and that is just one of them. All right. We're on to case 7.0. I'm going to ask Sharon if you would read again.
Okay. Merchandise before the buyer takes possession of it. K7.1. Merchandise is the responsibility of the seller before the buyer has taken possession of it. If merchandise is destroyed, is that one word?
You can just skip it. You can just skip it. Yeah.
Off or used up by itself or through the act of a seller, then the agreement is canceled and no payment is due for it. If the buyer destroys such merchandise, he must pay its price, and his destroying it is considered as having taken possession of it. If a third party destroys such merchandise, the deal is not canceled, but rather the buyer is given a choice to either 1. to either 1, cancel the agreement and make the value of the third party destroyed a debt that the third party owes to the seller. 2, or effect the deal, paying the seller the price, if he agrees to effect the deal, and making the third party liable to pay the value to the buyer. Is that it?
So if that actually makes sense, someone destroys merchandise in a store. Let's say you go up to the counter, you're about to pay for something, someone walks up and smashes whatever it is you're going to buy.
Yeah.
And they're on the hook for it. I've had something similar happen, but that was a long, long time ago. Yeah. Yeah. All right. We're going to go on. That's just a weird one. I thought I would find more on slavery here, but there wasn't on that one. Eric, 7.2, please.
7.2. Coming up. When one buys something, it is not permissible to sell it until one has taken possession of it. The invalidity of selling it, likewise, applies to all transactions disposing of it, such as renting it, giving it away, and so forth. It is also invalid for the seller to dispose of the price in any way before it has been received from the buyer, unless the new transaction is with the same buyer and involves the very same price, article that is the price. But if the price is a financial obligation, that is an amount of money unspecified as to which particular pieces of money it is, the seller may ask for a different sort of payment provided he has not already accepted the payment, as when he sells something for dirhams, but then accepts gold, a garment, or something else instead of them.
So it's not permissible to basically change the method of payment. Is that what we're saying? Or is it?
Well, beginning, it says you cannot, when you buy something, you can't agree to the sale of that until you have that in your possession. Again, I think last week or the week before last, we talked about selling futures.
Yeah, and this is against futures.
This would prohibit that. But then again, if let's say you're a car dealer and a guy comes in, he wants to order a car, then does that mean that you can't sell the car to him until the manufacturer ships the car to you and then you can sell it to him? Or can he go ahead and purchase it from you until you get it from the manufacturer? It sounds to me like you can't do that. But, I might be wrong on this.
That's where I see that this problem continually. Yeah. I thought if the price is financial obligation, this amount of money is specified. It's too wordy to truly. I think that's one of the problems. The translators try to make things into legalese and they screwed themselves up, because it's a little bit more simpler in the actual translation. If he buys something that is not permissible, that is not valid for him to sell it until he receives it. So this is, like Eric was saying, it would get rid of the futures market. You wouldn't be able to order a car because you can't pay for it beforehand. Okay, and so most cars, most houses, I would say a lot of Western civilizations deals, I buy stuff online. I'm making a payment before I receive it. So that would negate all of online sales as non-Islamic, wouldn't it?
I don't see how.
Yeah, because you're paying for something without having possession of it. I didn't even think of that. This would
would take care of all your straw purchases for firearms.
Wow. This would invalidate the entire online. So now you have to
then go ahead and institute Sharia law. There you go.
So now we should ask if Amazon is allowed to operate in Islamic countries. or eBay, or yeah, they're allowed to sell but not buy. This is interesting. Okay, let's go on. Sharon, case 7.3, please.
Taking possession means, 1, for transportable things such as wheat or barley, that they be transported by the buyer or his representative. That is, when he moves the merchandise to a place not belonging to the seller, such as the street or the buyer's house. 2, for things dealt with by hand, such as a garment or book, that they be taken in hand. 3, and for other things, such as a house or land, that they be given over. The seller give the buyer control over them, such as by handing the key to him or moving others' belongings off the property.
So again, it's possession means actually physically receiving.
Yeah.
Things they dealt with by hand, such as a garment, a book, take it in hand. Okay. Other things such as a house or land, they be given over. I think a lot of these rules would negate online sales because you pay before you receive. Wow. All right. I think we're about done. Let me just double check. We have one more, maybe. This is it. Okay. Case 7.4, another one not translated. If the seller says, I will not deliver the sold item until I receive the price, and the buyer says, I will not deliver the price until I receive the sold item, if the price is due, the seller is obligated to deliver first. Then the buyer is obligated to deliver. And if the price is specified, they are both obligated to be ordered to do so. This will be a problematic deal. It kills online sales. You know what? People should be warned. Shariah says you can't sell online. Oh. That's basically what it's negating. Wow. I hadn't even caught that before. When you said futures market, Eric, I hadn't even thought about online sales.
Yeah,
Because
that would come
the
as
same. Yeah. This is the end of what I have to present tonight on Shariah. If you want to support the work, you can pick up any one of these books here. You can find them on Amazon. And if you're a retail outlet, you can look up the ISBN number and you can order some of these online. I'm trying to get the Cancer Civilization Jihad and Civilization Jihad and the Myth of Modern Islam into a better forum. So you can do that and get be able to sell it at retail value. All right. And these are the two that are currently being worked on by the publisher. All right. This, to me, is one of the most dangerous things I have seen out there this week. This is a video of a Muslim in Mexico telling other Muslims how to come to America legally or illegally. So I'm going to stop sharing and then put this back up so you can hear it. This is going to blow your mind. This makes me upset beyond belief that this is actually happening. And I think this should probably upset a lot of people, but I don't know if you've seen this with memory, but if you haven't, this is a mind number.
وجدتكم الآن كمان على مسجد ثاني بيجوا عليه العرب لحتى يلجأوا له ويحتموا فيه قبل ما يروحوا على أمريكا. أين أنت؟ بشرهم. أنا من الجزائر. بسم الله ما شاء الله. أول ما تدخل المسجد تلاقي هاي الطاولات هنا والكنب. عندك هنا الطاولة تبعت الأكل والشرب، وهناك بكون مصلى الناس والناس بتقرأ قرآن. فوق موجود مصلى النساء. وأنا الآن مع شيخ هذا المسجد.
والله طبعا العرب ممنوعين يدخلوا المكسيك وصعب يطلع فيزا المكسيك، فكانوا بيأتوا من الإكوادور بيمروا بحوالي 8 دول، اقل شيء يستغرقوا في الطريق شهر كامل، بيعدوا من على انهر وبحار وغابات، كثير منهم يعني يمكن يكون انهم راوا الموت بعينيهم، بل بعضهم فعلا في ناس منهم مات.
خلينا اورجيكم الان كيف الناس بتعبر لامريكا. هي احد المداخل اللي الناس بتعبر فيها على امريكا، بروحوا بيسبحوا لهناك وبلفوا وبتلاقيها مباشره بالاراضي الامريكيه اللي هناك، وبتاخذهم بعدين شرطه الهجره الامريكيه اللي موجوده على الجهه الثانيه، او حتى في ناس بتدخل من خلال انفاق بيعملوها تحت الارض وبروحوا على الجهه الثانيه، او ممكن يقصوها وبينزلوا من تحتها زي ما شرح لنا الشاب المكسيكي قبل شوي، او انهم كمان ممكن يتسلقوها ويروحوا على الجهه الثانيه من امريكا، وخصوصا في سان دييغو. قد صار لك عايش هون في تيوانا؟
تقريبا سنه.
قد صار لك عايش هون؟
انا في 4 سنين ونصف. في كثير شباب بتيجي هون، يعني اقرب مثال نحكي بالنسبه لشباب الاردن، اغلبيه القصص متشابهه. الشباب اللي بيجوا من الاردن اول شيء بقدموا على فيزا بريطانيا، والفيزا هي مجانيه. هذه الفيزا بتمكنهم انهم يدخلوا المطار، ولكن بعض الاصدقاء حكوا لي انهم بقعدوا بريطانيا 3 ايام وبعدين بيطلعوا من بريطانيا على نيكاراغوا
وبدون فيزا كمان.
نيكاراغوا بدخلوها بدون فيزا للاردنيين.
اوكي
يا بيصلوا نيكاراغوا، في بيكونوا متفقين مع اشخاص، هذول الاشخاص باخذوهم بوصلوهم من نيكاراغوا للهندوراس، اي مكان بالمكسيك، وبعدين بوصلوهم على اي مكان بالمكسيك.
يعني الهدف انهم يوصلوا تيوانا؟
هدفهم يوصلوا تيوانا اللي احنا فيها. هي كل المشكله تكمن هون، يعني الجميع هدفه بيجي هون. ما دام وصل على تيوانا انت بتحكي يعني 70% زي كانه صار في امريكا. اقل شيء بتكلف $6000.
$6000
اقل شيء، مش شيء بيرفكت، عذاب.
حين يصل الى تيخوانا يعني يبحث عن طريقه لدخوله الى الولايات المتحده، لكن ليس من السهل الدخول الى امريكا لانه صعب جدا، خاصه وفيه مهربين وفيه الحكومه المكسيكيه تمنع دخول المهاجرين الى تيخوانا.
الطريقتين اللي ممكن تدخل فيهم امريكا، الطريقه الاولى الشرعيه والطريقه الثانيه غير الشرعيه. اما الطريقه الشرعيه اللي هم زي ما شفناهم الشباب بالمسجد، بيوصلوا للمكسيك، بيوصلوا لتيوانا، بيروحوا على المسجد وبيعبوا طلب اسمه CBP، وبستنوا دورهم من الحدود الامريكيه. لما يجي دورهم بروحوا بدخلوا امريكا قانوني، وبدخلوا البلد وامورهم تمام التمام، وبقدموا طلبات لجوء. اللي بيدخلوا بطريقه غير شرعيه على امريكا هذول الجماعه اللي بيمزعوا جوازات سفرهم، هم الاشخاص اللي بيدخلوا من هون، اللي بيدخلوا من تحت الارض، اللي بينطوا من فوق السور. اما اللي بيدخل بالطريقه غير الشرعيه مجبر انه يعمل مقابله مع ضابط اللجوء اللي موجود بحدود امريكا، واللي بنمسك طب بيروح على امريكا وبيقدم لجوء ولا بيرجعوه هون؟
على حسب جنسيه، جميع الجنسيات باخذوهم، بس الجنسيه المكسيكيه بتعاقب، بودوا اسمه على المكسيك وبنسجن.
واو،
عشان هيك صعبه بالنسبه للمكسيكيين.
بس غير الجنسيات عادي.
الجنسيات الثانيه عادي.
بتعرفوا ليش باقي الجنسيات عادي؟ لانه ما عندهم مكان يرجعوا له. يعني نفرض انه مثلا مسك جنسيه عربيه مثلا، ومسكوا يحبسوا هون على اي اساس في المكسيك، بس المكسيكي في مكان يحبسوا فيه هون. That's crazy, man.
You know, I saw this. It just offended me to think that this is being done. I was shocked, and think that is being pushed out to get people to come to the United States illegally, and legally, trying to show them ways to get in. I was shocked with the areas they were pointing out. One of the things that did not get translated is there was a piece where they actually say that if you're trying to climb over this, well, if you can fall and die. That didn't get perfectly translated. I only know that because I used an AI to try to put it into English, and it says you can go to Allah by climbing that fence. But scary to think that this is how people are planning to come to this country and to come here illegally, and we have people encouraging others to do that. Anyone else's thoughts?
Well, our whole immigration system is so broke that, you know, this is what you get. I mean, you get, you know, just complete abject, up in your face lawlessness and the flaunting of our laws in our face. And that's why we're offended, because these laws should be enforced. You should not break into our country and say, well, I want asylum because my country sucks. Well, the next thing you know, you got 10 million people pouring into your country, in a 3.5 year period. Unassimilated people from all different ethnic backgrounds. I've had kids in my class that, a lot of them, they're from Central and South America, speak Spanish. But I've also had kids in my class that don't speak Spanish. I had one that was from Korea. He spoke nothing but Korean. Chinese, spoke nothing but Mandarin. And we didn't have an interpreter that's in our school that spoke Chinese Mandarin. So the kids spent the entire day on a translator machine trying to learn the language. Now, he did learn the language. I mean, he's a very intelligent young man, but this is what you get. You not only break our laws, you flaunt the breaking of our laws in our face, and then you place a burden on our society to educate you, provide you housing, provide you food, and provide you medical care. It's so unbelievable what our country is allowing to happen today, and it's something doesn't
I
change.
will say this: you are so right about the cost. People don't realize the federal government only provides for 1 year for a refugee. Now, what does that mean? Do they provide housing? No. There's no housing provided by the federal government. Now start thinking what's being provided by the federal government. There are these small amounts of money that are given out to families. These are small amounts. They are given to these organizations, and those organizations give them to the families. Okay. Remember, the organizations take a fee. Oh. So, yeah. Guess where the biggest amount of money was coming from? See, it's state run. The states decide how much they're going to give out. TANF, I think it's called TANF, is how much money they are going to give to the people. Guess which state gave the most, and a lot of Muslims went? Oh, it was Minnesota. Minnesota gave the most money out at one point, and the Somalians all raced to that state because they talk and they find out who's getting the most money, and they all moved there. So it didn't matter if they first were placed in, let's say, New York State or in Illinois or wherever. They went to the state that they realized gave the most money, and they moved there and hoped that would help them. That's the kind of thing that's actually happening. So it's something we need to think about. The states compete against each other for refugees unknowingly, and some states are refusing refugees, thank God. Many states, as stupid as the state that I live in, New York State, still have cities designated as refugee or asylum type states. You can come there if you're illegal. And all of a sudden, New York City is saying, oh, this is too expensive. All these major cities are saying it's too expensive. Well, you have this guy doing this show in Tijuana, telling people to come to Tijuana and you can get in. This is scary, people. I mean, they're not vetting anyone at the border. We just had a news article on that, where the news was, somebody at CBP was saying, we don't have a way to vet anyone crossing the borders except for the materials that is provided by U.S. sources. There's nothing there saying, so this person is on the European Union wanted site. He's wanted for this or that. There's nothing there saying this person's wanted in Africa for murder or whatever. They don't have sources to check every single person coming in. And think about it. They're tossing out their passports. So they come in, they say, hi, my name is Sam Smith. Do you have any proof? No, but my name's Sam Smith. You might not know a word of English, but that's all they're saying. How do you vet? You can't. And then our government is letting them in currently. That's not actually legal. That's my problem with it. It's policy, which is, I think everybody should be scared, be watchful. The DNC is yet to end. keep reminding everyone that Kamala is the border czar. She may be. One thing we can do today is look at Kamala as having been the president throughout Joe's entire presidency, because if he has dementia all this time, who's really running things? Technically, it would be her, even though it might be Obama. I don't know. But it's something that can be said when you're thinking about who you're voting for in the fall. So let's keep everybody in prayers. I want to say thank you to everybody. Any last words? Darcy, sorry. Hope your eyes are feeling better.
Yeah. Same as always, do your own research. It's free to read. So, with Muslims, find a Bible, an actual physical Bible, and read it. Find a physical Quran or any Islamic source and read them yourself. They're free.
Sharon?
I agree with Darcy, but other than that, nothing else. And thank you, Paul.
And Eric?
Yeah, Monday, we're going to talk about Mecca again.
Ooh.
Yippee-ki-yay.
I will be back with you on Monday. We don't have a class on Monday, so I now have to bow out once every 3 weeks because I'm taking a grad class and having a good time finally with grad classes. All right. God bless everybody. Keep the good fight. Thank you.
Yep. God bless.